The self possesses its own wisdom about how to heal. This is a quote from Richard Schwartz, who is the founder, thinker, and theorist behind internal family systems theory. And I wanted to start with that quote because I genuinely believe it. There is a part within us that knows how to handle, tolerate, experience, and deal with difficult emotions and difficult experiences. But the truth is, we spend so much time distracting that wisdom, filling that wisdom with noise, overworking, overthinking, overperforming, and shutting it down, that we often don't hear what that wisdom is trying to tell us. And that is what emotional regulation is all about. So before I get there, my name is Asanda and welcome to my channel. I started this YouTube channel a while back and then I abandoned it. But I've had a number of people DM me on Instagram or TikTok asking me if I have longer form content, which I find very encouraging and also interesting because the online space is forcing everyone to go shorter and shorter. Like 3 minutes is too long, 1.5 minutes is too long, 7 seconds, that's the sweet spot. And that's where we're all being pushed, right, in terms of content production. So it's quite encouraging to hear that people want longer form content. You want to engage with my content beyond catchphrases and one-line statements. I found that very encouraging. I thought before I came back to YouTube, I needed to have a very clear idea about what I wanted to do with the space. And through a lot of reflection, and mind you, this has taken 10 years to come together, but through that reflection, I am more certain and clear about how I can be impactful and how this page can also bring you meaning and resonate and relate with you in a way that is meaningful. So I'm back and I really look forward to exploring all things internal world with you. This doesn't negate the external world that often shapes our internal world, but I really want to zone in on the internal world. If we were to think about it as an actual world with matters, materials, objects, structures, I want us to think about it that way. And what we'll be doing on my channel is to actually explore that world as though we had a map and we were going on an adventure trying to seek gold. And what is that gold? Emotional regulation. So that's what the page will be all about, because my main philosophy is, and my core value is, emotions should inform your life, not run it. And there are a number of theories that seek to explain emotional regulation, but for the purposes of this video, I'll focus on one. So from an internal family systems perspective, emotional regulation speaks to or seeks to understand that emotions come from different parts. So each of our emotions manifest as a result of a part within us. Secondly, it recognizes that those parts are protective. They're not dysfunctional, they're not trying to sabotage you, but they are trying to protect you. And lastly, emotional regulation recognizes, or rather the goal is, to allow yourself, which is your grounded core, to take the lead. Because if we don't understand our emotions, or we lead or move from a wounded, unresolved place, then our emotions are leading, not us. So IFS talks about 4 parts. I'll speak about 3 parts now, and then we can speak about the 4th part a bit later on. The first part are the exiles. These are wounded, vulnerable parts of ourselves that hold very painful experiences. Then we have the managers. These are the over-functioning, controlling parts of ourselves that are trying to maintain our image, but also seek to gain a sense of control. And then we have the firefighters. Now, these are the reactive, impulsive, numbing parts of us that are normally activated when the exile is exposed. Right. So these are the 3 parts that IFS recognizes are at play or are the result of the certain emotions that we are feeling. Maybe not a result, but sort of like a precedent to the emotions that we feel. So if managers say, don't let this happen, a firefighter will say, this is already happening. so let's just extinguish it. And firefighters are really keen on surviving the moment, whatever intensity there is in that moment, and not necessarily the long-term consequences of the decisions or the behavior that you might be exemplifying at that stage. So when we are emotionally dysregulated, IFS says either one of these three parts is actually flooding the system. And when your system is flooded, these parts tend to eclipse everything. This could be your work, your partner, your relationships, your parenting, your sense of purpose, your sense of self, because these parts have not been listened to in a particular way that is helpful. So if there's a pain that you can't seem to get to the bottom of, or an anxiety that you feel you can't control, or a sadness that you can't seem to escape, these aren't weaknesses. What IFS teaches is that these are parts of us that are overwhelmed, are now eclipsing everything in our lives. If you're enjoying this video, then it's probably because you're still trying to find the language for what's keeping you emotionally stuck. I've created a free quiz for you to understand and to identify what's keeping you emotionally stuck, what your emotional language infrastructure looks like, and this will also give you access to resources that will help you get emotionally unstuck. If you would like further information, check out more information below. Let's continue with the video. So I want to bring this a bit closer to you. Let's use a relational example. For example, your partner doesn't respond to your messages for quite some time or some hours. If an exile is activated, you may start to feel unloved, unimportant, worthless. And if a manager, for example, is the one that is activated, you might then start to feel or have certain thoughts that emerge that say, don't be needy, stay calm, you're exaggerating. And that may lead to behaviors like overthinking or trying to suppress what you're feeling at that moment. Now, if an exile is activated, like I said, that normally brings in the firefighter to rush in and try to save the day. The firefighter, if that is the one that is activated, you might find yourself sending an angry message, shutting down emotionally, engaging in impulsive behaviors, or even compulsive distractions just to get rid of that feeling that is now activated. So this is how those three parts intertwine or relate with one another. Then you have the self. So the self, which I said is your grounded core and the ideal that we're trying to get to, the self is the witnessing, regulating presence that IFS speaks about. The self is calm, it's curious, it's compassionate, it's confident. And when the self is leading, the managers relax, the firefighters soften, and the exiles can be approached safely, right? So what I want you to get out of this video is, if you found yourself thinking, I'm too sensitive, I'm too broken, this is too much for me, I need to get over it, I'm too sensitive, whatever you found yourself saying, I want you to recognize which part is being activated at that moment, which part is dominating at that moment. Because what we find is that a lot of times we punish and we try to criticize these parts instead of nurturing them and leading them with compassion. So we shame them, we silence them, we try to distract them or shut them down completely. But for you and for the purposes of this video, I really want to invite you to think about how those parts are being activated within you and how you might find yourself nurturing those parts instead of punishing them. If you think about it, what happens when you ignore a child or treat a hurting child like a burden? They don't disappear, they get louder, or they shut down completely. Right? This is the same with the parts that we have as well. We need to be able to nurture them and understand them if we seek to lead them with compassion. They won't disappear, they'll just get louder, or they'll be completely shut down. Either way, either extreme doesn't really work out well for what you are trying to achieve, I imagine, when you find yourself here. So I want to invite you to reframe how you respond to triggers. Instead of saying, I shouldn't be feeling this, I really want you to think about saying, oh, this makes sense. This reaction, this response makes sense, but I don't want to allow it to eclipse my life anymore. Do you notice how compassionate that sounds, how different the tone sounds when you're saying, I understand this, I understand where it's coming from, but I also want to have a sense of control over it, versus saying, I shouldn't be feeling this at all. And this is something we'll continue to explore on my page as well. What is the internal dialogue, the script that goes on in your mind when emotions are provoked or activated? Are you harsh? Are you punitive? Are you self-soothing? Or are you quite critical of yourself in those moments? Because your internal voice is also a big tool you have at your disposal that will help you to either feel better or to feel worse when emotions come up. So we are trying to move towards you feeling a bit more regulated, consistently regulated, because when emotions are unregulated, anxiety will dictate your decision, fear will stop your opportunities, anger erodes your relationships, or you even find that sadness steals your motivation. That's not what we want, and I imagine that's why you're here, and that's why you've stayed up until this point in the video. So over time, you find that when emotions are unregulated, your functionality decreases. Even though you feel like you might be okay on the surface, or sometimes you distinctively know that you're not okay, you find that emotions have a way of eclipsing your life and also hijacking your sense of self and your day, or even months and years. But we really want to get to a point where self is leading, right? If there's a part that can experience an emotion, there's also a part that can witness and regulate that emotion, and it's within you. You just need to be silent enough to hear it and to allow it to guide you to be the person that you want to be and to feel as regulated as you need to be. So like I said at the beginning, understanding your emotions allows your emotions to inform your life, not to run it, because the self really does possess its own wisdom about how to heal. We just need to be quiet enough to hear it. So when you hear yourself saying, I just overthink everything, that's the manager very hard at work. If you find yourself binging or spiraling, that's the firefighter trying to intervene. When you find yourself feeling unloved or unlovable, that's an exile that has been exposed. All of these parts are organized around protecting you and keeping you safe. And at some point in your life, you needed these parts to survive. Right now, you need to ask yourself whether the way you survived in the past is the way you want to continue living going forward. And that's what the page will help you to do, right? Managers prevent exposure, firefighters will extinguish activation, and exiles hold unmet needs. It's not disordered, it's not dysfunctional. All of this is protective. So if this resonated with you, I hope you subscribe and you stick around for the other videos that we will do. If you want me to do something a bit more practical to bring what I've just discussed home, let me know in the comments.